Hello and welcome back to the Watermill. Previously, we installed these props to support the floors above, as the floor beams have rotted and no longer reach the wall. We did them up as tight as we could, but the floors could still be lifted a little bit more. We also ran out of props and have since had more delivered. Today, I'm going to fix the props and get a few more areas supported. The first time we used these, we didn't add any grease to the threads. The threads are painted and there's a pretty decent amount of load on them, so we couldn't get them as tight as we might have liked. When propping the floor beams over the millstones, I used a lot of grease on the props, which made for much easier going and allowed me to get the floors back to their correct position. I'm also propping up the floors at the top of the stairs, as every time someone goes across the floor there, we get more sawdust and debris falling out of the rotten floor joists and onto the floors below. This makes a pretty big mess after just a day or so, as the floor beams against the walls are mostly sawdust. So it's time to take these props down, lubricate them, and then put them back up.
I took down the mid-floor props first to take the load off the ground floor ones. This way, the ground floor props are only supporting one floor and not two. Before I lowered the ground floor props, I greased the thread under the nut so it could pick up some lubrication as it went down. I didn't need to move these props, so I could just grease the newly exposed thread and crank them back up again. I'm using a post level on the props to ensure they're as close to vertical as possible. The load the props can handle drops significantly as they tilt away from being perfectly vertical. When we first set the props up, we just eyeballed the bottom of the beam and wall socket to raise the floor. This time, I'm using our digital level to get the floors as close to level as I can. The props might be staying in place until we have the roof replaced, so it's worth taking the time to do things properly. When new, some of the props just don't want to open. Greasing the threads is all well and good, but it can be a huge struggle just to extend them in the first place. I'm guessing they're assembled before the paint is fully cured. Back on the middle floor, I'm trying to place the props above the ones on the ground floor as closely as possible. The timber below isn't particularly good, so I want the props stacked on top of each other. This way, the timber joist is only in compression and doesn't get a shear load on it as well. The floor above is pretty heavy and primarily supported by the props, so I found it a lot easier to use a section of scaffolding to help drive the floor up. The beams above are generally in good condition, as they haven't been eaten by boring beetles, but the sections going into the wall have been destroyed by fungus.
Needed a few more props than I thought here, but our floors are now a little more secure and walking around is a little safer and less bouncy. Hopefully we'll receive our listed building consent to repair or replace the beams this week, so we can order the wood and get started on the floors. We'll also be able to remove the rotten floorboards with that consent, which will make a huge impact on how safe the floors are. It's not much fun when you step on a floorboard and your foot goes through it. We still have a few more props to use as we need them, which will come in very handy as we remove full beams. Hope you enjoyed the video and see you next time.